This is your host, Marisol, a expat lifestyle and business coach, bringing you an episode of Roaming the Now, where expat entrepreneurs, coaches, and mentors come together to give you a behind-the-scenes look at the real and raw experience of what it actually means to set out to a new country and build a life and business abroad. Like and subscribe if you found some value in this episode, and check out the links in the description. You can find the link to get the Roaming the Now episodes delivered directly to your inbox in the description below.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Roaming the Now. Today I have Kiki Athanas with us, who's also joining us in Mexico. Hello.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here in Mexico with you.
Amazing. Kiki's about 2 hours, I would say more north. I don't know. I'm really bad at directions. I'm like southwest of Mexico City.
Okay. Then I'm with you.
Yeah, I guess. She obviously knows her geography better. I have known Kiki actually since I first got to Mexico. Someone was like, reach out to Kiki. She's really cool. And me and Kiki have like always stayed in touch. So I'm really excited to like have the opportunity to talk with you and learn about your experience. I would say globetrotting around since you are still in the midst of this adventure of expat life and living in different places. So before we jump into that and learning more about you and where you're going next, I'd love for you to share just more about you and your background and where you're originally from and how did you end up in the country that you are now.
Yes. So I am Canadian, although I don't even really resonate as being Canadian. Both of my parents are immigrants. My mom's from England and my dad's from Greece. And so I just never felt like the typical Canadian. Like we never did the cottage thing. I mean, I would drink some Tim Hortons coffee here and there. But other than that, I was never like into hockey or like any sort of like winter sport. And so I say I'm Canadian, but it's like with a caveat. But I have lived in Canada for all of my life. That's where I was raised. And until I was, I guess, like mid to late, yeah, like mid 20s. That's when I really decided that I wanted to go somewhere different. It was always something that was brewing within me. I knew that Canada wasn't my place. Whenever I would go to Europe to visit family, I always felt so at home there. But to be completely honest, whenever I would go anywhere, it was sort of like the running joke in my family. I would just go somewhere else and they'd be like, hey, do you want to live there now? Like, or I would go to even like places in the States and I'm like, oh my God, like Boston. Like, they're like, I should move to Boston. Like, Boston is so great. And so, anyways, I just never really felt like Canada was home beyond like my family being there and beyond it being familiar, but it didn't really feel like I belonged there. I always, when I would go to different places, felt more like I would belong there. And so, yeah, basically in 2020, when like COVID was all going down, it was finally the time when I was like, okay, this is the last straw. I need to leave. I hate winter and I hate the cold. And so being in like the COVID situation where like I couldn't even like go to my gym and things like that because they were closed, I just felt like there wasn't enough escape to winter. It was just kind of like, okay, I have my home and then like going for walks. Like I can't deal with this. And so I actually wanted to go to Bali. Thank God I didn't go there now. But yeah, for some reason I had it in my head that I was going to go to Bali. Bali was totally closed for COVID. There was no ins, no outs. And then someone said like, well, Tulum is sort of like Mexican Bali. And I had some friends there. So I just booked a flight. I didn't even sublet my apartment. Like I was like, I'll be back. I just need to get away from the winter for a couple of months and I don't want people touching my stuff. I don't want to change anything. Like I just took a suitcase, went to Tulum, planning to come back 2 or 3 months later. And then, yeah, and then I just never came back. I mean, I did eventually go back to like visit family, but I never moved back after that.
Okay, well, so what happened to your apartment?
Thankfully I have like the best parents in the world. And once like 3 months in, I was like, okay, I'm like burning money here. Like, why am I just like paying for my apartment in Toronto? With like, and so I spoke with my landlord and I just said like the situation and like if he was open to me finding like a sublet, and he was super nice, and he was like, yeah, like you can get someone to just take over the lease if you want, like it's all good. And so yeah, my mom basically went in there and like cleared out all my stuff and put it into storage. Most of it I think she just like took and enjoyed. And then some of the stuff we just sold, but it's really freeing to not have like things. I mean, I love things. I'm not saying that I'm a minimalist. I'm like the opposite. Like the Amazon delivery guy here knows me. So I'm definitely not saying that I'm a minimalist, but it's nice to just not feel like I have like major like assets to take care of in different parts of the world. Like I'm trying to be more and more light so I can flow and just know that it's like, okay, I can buy clothes wherever I am, and then I can either sell them or donate them, and like life is abundant, and we're meant to just use things, not necessarily hoard them or like collect assets.
Yeah, 100%. I really agree with you. One of the best things that I did was just kind of like liquidate my physical like home investments in the US. Because it really is complicated to have assets in another country when you're living in another country if you don't have like a super great support system, or just like for tax purposes, and just like this whole idea of, when you're moving, you're living in alignment with the lifestyle where you are. And so if it's a lot less and you don't need as much to live off of, and then you're like, wow, I'm like paying so much for something I'm not even using.
Exactly. And you become so rich without knowing. You're like, "Oh, wait, I do have money. I just need to liquidate it." Yeah.
Exactly. It's interesting. I filed my taxes recently in the US, and I was saying to my dad, I was like, well, like, yeah, I live in Mexico, but I realized, like, just from filing my taxes and going through this experience, it's like, I'm self-employed, all that. I was like, I still think of money in like a United States way. Like, I still have the Western consciousness that like operates like how I do things. But I have to remind myself, like, oh no, wait, like that's actually a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, totally. I'm the same. And even just I mean, I'm from Canada, so like the Canadian dollar right now as well is like really, really crazy low in comparison to USD. And so yeah, it's also it's important to note that like I still don't really know the conversion around like pesos to like USD or Canadian. Like and I've literally been here for like 3 years, and I still have to put it in my little app. And yeah, so like anyone who's looking to move, like get your conversions like down, because for the longest time I was like, everything is cheap here, like, and I would just like not think about it because I'm like, but it's pesos. Like it's cheap, but like it does add up. Yeah.
It adds up, okay? It really does. Like when I first got here, I was like, oh, 800 pesos, like no big deal. And I was like, but wait, 800 pesos is like 40 USD. Like if I spend 800 pesos all the time, like that adds up actually really quick. That is
Yeah,
not, that
exactly. I
is
know.
not that is not in alignment with like, this is not in alignment. Like, come on, like check yourself.
Yeah. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, girl. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, so good. So I know you've moved around Mexico a lot because when I met you, you lived in San Miguel de Allende. So where have you like bounced around in all of Mexico? And I'd love for you to kind of share just like your personal like experience and perspective of the places that you stayed.
So first I went to Tulum, which, to be fair, I did like it for the first little while. I had friends that loved Tulum, and so I'm very a product of my environment, and I'm very easily influenced. And so I was drinking the Tulum Kool-Aid, and was like, oh my God, yeah, this is so great, amazing. But eventually, I did get, even though I'm very much in the wellness world and like all about mindful living and conscious living and all of that jazz, I did find it incredibly um, just fake, and like almost like it was like really try hard. Like everyone was hosting ceremonies like all the time. I'm like, if I get invited to another flippin' like cacao ceremony, I'm gonna shoot someone in the head. So that was Tulum, and I needed to leave. I also like Tulum. The beach is really lovely, but it's very separate. There's like the beach area, and then there's like Centro, which is not cute and like not vibey. It's like just kind of like a dirty, gross, chaotic Centro. And that's where I lived, because if you want to be near the grocery stores and like etc., then you kind of have to live there. So I also like hated the bugs. I was always being eaten alive by mosquitoes. My hair got really, really frizzy because it was really humid. So yeah, I also like don't like living near a beach. I don't like the energy of the beach. I find it very chaotic. I really like fashion and like aesthetics, and I feel like when you're in a beach town, it's just very just like beachwear. And so it's just not my vibe. So I stayed there for 2 months, and then I went to San Miguel de Allende. Totally fell in love. It's very European. It's like small town, but at the same time very cosmopolitan, and they have a lot of like the cute things, and like for me, it's like cafes and like I don't know, vegan restaurants and like really cute boutiques. And so I actually stayed there for a year. And now I go back and I'm like, how did I live here for a year? Like it's so inaccessible in the sense of like there's none of like the big stores, and like even just getting around, it's like going from one side of the tiny little town to another can take like half an hour because of all the like cobblestone streets and like the cars, and like it's very small town vibes. But I loved it because it was so beautiful, and I really am about like the aesthetics of where I live. It was me being able to kind of live out this dream of like living in France or something like that. I will say though that it gets I mean, I don't get up to anything that's like worth gossiping about, but it is very like a typical like everyone knows everyone, everyone's in each other's business. And again, I don't really care because my life is pretty like beautifully boring. So there's nothing really that I was trying to hide, but I will say that it almost did get annoying to like if you want to go out to a cafe, it's like everything becomes a social activity. Like you will see people. Everyone's brunching all of the time. Everyone is inviting you to every party like all the time. And it's just like it's not necessarily the energy that I wanted as I was continuing to build and develop my coaching practice, because it just felt like no one was working ever. It's a lot of also retirees. And then even the young people, it's sort of like young people that just come from money and they're here for like a month to like live out their dream or whatever. And so if you need to kind of practice discipline and really want to just like work, it's not really the best energy to be in. So I was craving city. I ended up meeting someone, and he lived in Guadalajara, and so I tried there for about a year. I didn't love Guadalajara, to be honest. It's like, especially, it's not pretty, to be honest. Like there are pretty parts, because every area has pretty parts, but it yeah, it just there was something. It was very grunge, and lots of creativity there, lots of artists. It was very cool, super hip, way too hip for me. Like I'm like I don't think I'm basic bitch, but I went there and I was like, oh no, I'm basic bitch. Like this is way too cool for me. Even my boyfriend at the time, like he's very like that. Like it's just like that like Radiohead culture, and like everyone's a little bit goth and a little bit and I can appreciate it, but I'm also like, oh, I just want like pretty. Is that so wrong? Like sorry, like I just want like a cute cafe, and also just to look pretty, not like to just like everyone's so fashionable, but it's not to me attractive. I'm like, you don't look good, you just look fashionable, right? Like I want to look good. And so that was Guadalajara for me. I got the hell out of there. Also, no one really speaks English there. So that was difficult for me as I am still learning Spanish. And although it was a better place to learn, like in San Miguel de Allende, like once they know you're English, everyone there speaks English, so they won't practice with you. Whereas in Guadalajara, there was no choice. Like you have to. So that was probably a blessing in disguise. But at one point while I was in Guadalajara, I came to Mexico City just for a weekend, and I just remember being like, oh my God, this city is amazing. It is beautiful. It's sort of like the best of both worlds in the sense of like from Guadalajara, like it was great to be so city and so accessible and like all of the things that you want. But then San Miguel, it has the elements of San Miguel that are like beautiful and like nature, and there are like big wide streets with like all the trees, and it just felt like wow, like this is the best of both worlds, and the energy here is really good. So yeah, I decided that like I wanted to go back, and I left Guadalajara. I went back to Toronto to kind of regroup for a little bit, ending that relationship and just kind of like maybe sort of trying Toronto back on for size for a bit. I was only there for a couple months though, and I was like, I'll go back to Mexico. Thank you very much. And so I came back and went straight to Mexico City in December of, I guess, 2022, and have spent the first part of 2023 here. And yeah, it's been amazing. I love Mexico City. It's honestly everything that I wanted and more. With that said, I'm gonna leave. Yeah. But that's sort of the history of me in Mexico. Yeah.
Yes, echoing what you're saying. So I actually went to Guadalajara once in my life and I never returned. Now that I live here in Malinalco, because so it's San Miguel and Malinalco that are like the finer Pueblo Mágicos. However, people here don't speak English. Like I'm kind of an anomaly. So I am forced to speak Spanish, but like everything that you're saying, I think, where I live, it does have the beautiful, like pretty buildings. You do have street food, but you also have these like really cute restaurants that like, are becoming more like trendy and like, organic food, like farm to table, like they have like a whole botanical like garden vibe inside. So yeah. So the longer I've lived here and the more I've gotten to explore, I'm realizing like, oh, okay, like wow, like now I get why people really are like Malinalco is one of the finer Pueblo Mágicos you can live in because it has a nice like flavor of, more modern things, like kind of pockets of them, but it's still preserving the old culture. But yeah, Guadalajara, not for me. Um, I will agree with that. And Tulum, again, just not one of those places that personally I would go and live for a while. I think it's cool, but kind of just echoing your sentiments. I'm in agreement. I see it a lot. Um, in Mexico City, I lived there for 3 months before I moved to Malinalco. I lived in Valladolid, which is like very, let's just say like it's a very normal, typical Mexican life. I lived there for a little bit. Thank goodness I wasn't there alone. I always share that. I wasn't there alone. And then we lived in Culiacan, and I loved Culiacan. I lived in like a super nice like penthouse apartment with like a view of the city, and like to the right you could like walk to the Culiacan like art market. To the left it was more like industrial. I loved it. It was really great. Um, However, I did in time kind of find myself getting a little like overwhelmed with city life. Like I've always lived in cities, so it was kind of a nice gift though. I'm always like, oh, how nice of you, the universe. You gave me the gift of like experiencing Mexico City and really getting to like live here and be immersed to just kind of give me, I feel like that confirmation of like, I tried it out. I know it's not for me before I transition into like a more, for me, like grounded, earthy, like where I live is considered like an energetic vortex, like life.
Yeah, that's oh my god, yeah, well, that's perfect for you. And you're right, like it is very city. I mean, like just the noise pollution alone. I know that there's also like other sorts of pollution apparently. But like whatever. But it's the noise pollution that gets me. It's like there's never quiet. There's never peace.
No, there is never quiet and never peace. I remember going back and forth because my house was a build. And so we would come and check on it. And I remember leaving Mexico City and then coming here and being like, oh my God, this is what silence is like. Because there's so much noise happening all the time in Mexico City. But that's part of the vibe, right? Like that's just
And with that said, it's like I still hear the birds. Like I wake up in the morning and like I can hear the birds. I can also hear, traffic and people and all of the things. So I don't hate it, but I also just know for my health that like now where I'm going to be renting in Toronto is it's still near Toronto, like the city, but it's in a suburb and it's like by the lake. And I'm just like excited to have quiet because noise pollution actually does really wreak havoc on your brain, especially after a while. Like we need silence, we need darkness, like we need things that sometimes cities can't give us. So
yes. I really feel like that was the biggest adjustment is getting, like, for me, getting comfortable being in the silence, getting comfortable that quite literally when it's dark, it's dark. It's like pitch dark. Like you can look up at the sky and like you can see all the stars. And I remember in Mexico City, like, yeah, you're right. You wish, girl, like there's too much pollution.
I don't know. You're not seeing anything when you look up. In fact, close your mouth. Like
Um, yeah, it's interesting. Like I love Mexico City. I have such a like it'll always have a special place in my heart. And who knows? Like as we were saying earlier, I never say never, and I never say forever, really, because I know that everything's just constantly changing. And part of me is like, who knows? Like maybe one day I'll have like an apartment in Mexico City for the weekend. Like I'll do the things in reverse. Like a lot of people in Mexico City come here on the weekend, but I'm just gonna like switch it up. I'm gonna do the reverse.
Yeah, no, I like that plan.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, no, it'd be super fun. Okay, so you are an intuitive eating coach, and I would love for you to talk about like navigating food, especially as you're traveling, because even as I was sharing with you, culture impacts diet and diet impacts your health. And so, someone like you, you're moving around a lot. Like how do you like eat in a way no matter where you are that like works for you and keeps you feeling like fresh and healthy and good?
Yes. Well, I am very good at being super selfish with my choices. And so I only ever eat what I want to eat. And I mean, obviously, it's also probably because I'm literally an intuitive eating coach. So, like, I'm trained in that. So, what's interesting to note is whenever I say I live in Mexico, people are like, oh my God, you're so lucky. The food is so good. Sorry to break it to you. I do not like Mexican food. And do I ever eat Mexican food? No. And I'm sorry that if that is like disrespectful, but I don't feel like it's not because I have anything like morally against it. And it's not because I think that it's quote unquote unhealthy or healthy or whatever it is. I just don't like Mexican food. And so I'm pretty good at navigating just figuring out food that I do like, and whether that means sometimes going to restaurants that are just kind of more, I would just say like modern, like just like general like modern fusion of whatever, or finding Greek restaurants, or there's like a lot of Mediterranean restaurants here and things like that, so it's fine when you're in a city. And then if not, like for instance in San Miguel there were cosmopolitan places, but I would just cook for myself. I just know that the Mexican food, it's not even that it doesn't sit right with me. I just genuinely do not like it. Um, and I honor my choices and like my preferences. I think that's also why I'm really like leaning and excited to go to Europe, because in Europe, I just feel like maybe it's just because it's in my blood. Like that's the food that I like. It's just like, oh, like a fish and like some like vegetables, versus here it's like, yeah, get it all like mashed up on a taco. But I'm like, no, I don't want it. Like, I want the whole fish. Do you know what I mean? Like, stop like chopping things up and putting things in them. So yeah, I would just really say for those that are like scared about the whole like getting sick in Mexico thing, as long as you take a probiotic, and you can get sick going anywhere. It's your microbiome is different, and the bacterias are different. I wouldn't necessarily say like, oh my God, Mexico is like so dangerous for food. I mean, if you're eating street food, maybe. I never really did that. But then again, you can eat street food everywhere, and like, and yeah, it probably would be the same thing where it might mess you up a little bit. And so I would say avoid that. And yeah, just always honor. I've always just really tapped into like, okay, well, what do I feel like? And climate really changes things, right? Like in Toronto, when I'm there and it's cold, I do want heavier, heartier, warmer, foods, versus when I was in Tulum, I did get away with eating more of a plant-based diet, like the smoothie bowls, like the typical, like what the annoying influencers on Instagram post. Like it works when you're there, right? And I think it's really important to recognize that it's like someone living their best bougie life in Tulum eating a smoothie bowl is likely not going to work for you in New York, Brooklyn, and like February. Do you know what I mean? And so like, please don't take your food recommendations from people that aren't you, and that also definitely aren't living in the same climate as you do. I really notice that changes things. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's super insightful. And I really love that. Like, just honor you and honor your body. Like, I was telling you, and I'll just tell everyone, I actually don't have that much craving for Mexican food anymore. And the Mexican food that I do eat is typically very like simple, traditional, especially where I live. Like, it's a tlacoyo. It's just like tortilla and beans, or
Yeah.
it's or a sope, which is just like a special type of tortilla, and it's beans and it's lettuce and it's cheese and some type of meat. Like, I'm not super into anymore. Like, I've been here a while. I've tried a lot of things, and even just like I watch like my family and everything here. Like they practice so much discernment with street food. Like it's not just like, oh, we can pop up here. Like they're like, like let's check this out. And the longer I've been here, I am kind of more like, hey, I live here. It's amazing I have this food available to me, but also like sometimes I just want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I just want a pizza. I just want like pesto,
Oh my goodness. Last night for dinner, we had English muffins with avocado. Yes, sometimes you just need like the basics.
Yes, no, exactly. And as I was saying, like avocado is so abundant and so affordable here. I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna honor that my body is wanting something that is a lot lighter and cleaner on the system. And so let me just kind of get a little bit more curious of how can I make that work for me. And at first you're like, huh, but it's like no, like I have a kitchen. There's like a
Yeah,
fresh market. That's amazing. Just
exactly.
make your list and buy what you want to like honor your system. So
Uh,
yeah.
and I think it's also worth noting that like, and you can also eat out and still like make your own choices and, like honor your own preferences. I honestly, I also love eating out and I eat out a lot. I mean, I'm lucky to be, I'm usually in very cosmopolitan places. So like, there are the like cute cafes that like you can order the, I don't know, trendier meals or whatever it is. But just because you're eating out, it doesn't mean that you're being unhealthy. I think so many people, especially the women that I speak with at the beginning, they're kind of like, oh, like, it's so bad. I like to eat out. And I'm like, no, that's not bad. Like you could very well be healthier eating out versus cooking at home. It's just really about how you're making the choices and how you're ordering and where are you going. And if you really look, you can always find, I mean, maybe not always in like the little pueblas, but for the most part, you can usually find places that have some options. And as you say, it's sometimes just like the simpler things, right? It's like every culture, every tradition has their own little thing where it's like just their basic, like simple little like 2 or 3 ingredient concoctions, and usually those are the best if you want to be a little bit more cautious about not feeling gross.
Yeah, no, I think that's honestly what it is. And like to your point, like, there is like obviously like when I've gone out, obviously the longer I live, I have more time to explore, but like the pizza place that I go to, like it's all fresh and like ingredients and like I don't know what they do with the bread here, but it doesn't, it doesn't make me feel but it doesn't do any of those things. And so I'm like, okay, cool, this is a really great option for me. I don't like this is something that I do because I want to have pizza and I know it's healthy and I feel good with this choice. So like amazing. But it's just like feel good about the choices that you're making and feel good about the food that you're eating, no matter where you are in the world. And it's okay if it's different because like really you get into cultures and food. And I remember being in Europe, like I was a little thrown off when they were like, "Do you want to eat pate?" And I was like, "What is that?" And they're like, "It's like a goose, like goose liver." And I was like, "Okay, I'll try it." No, what is it? It's called foie gras. I forgot. Foie gras, yeah.
Yeah. That's the yeah, that's like the really, I think, like inhumane thing that everyone gets mad about. But yeah, no, I've had it. It's it is what it is.
It is what
Uh,
it is. So with that being said, another episode for another time. Thank you so much for coming on and like sharing your perspective of moving around Mexico. I know that you shared with me you are getting ready to trot around Europe next, which is super exciting.
yes, I'm super excited. I'm gonna, I think, go to England at one point in late August, and then Greece. I love Greece. My dad's from Greece, and we have some family there. And then yeah, maybe some different places in Europe, and kind of stay there until the winter or until the Christmas, and then come back to Mexico. But I say this, and like literally every month things change, so who the hell knows? But I absolutely love Europe. And it's interesting because I was just having a conversation with a friend and she was like, isn't that interesting that like she feels super at home in Mexico? She's from Toronto as well. And she was like, yeah, like she was like, I don't get that when I go to Europe. Like I don't feel like a home feel. But she's like, but I do, I have it here. And I was like, isn't that great? Because for instance, I remember when I went to San Miguel, I was like, how could anyone not fall in love with this place? Like, oh my God, I was almost like wanting to hoard it. I'm like, anyone who comes here is just going to move here. Like, and like, oh my God, like it's so incredible. But we have to remember that it's like, no, like they're like, we all like different things, like different foods, different, all of the things. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to, although I absolutely love Mexico because it's freaking amazing in so many ways. It never truly felt like home for me. Like it feels like I'm in a different culture that isn't mine. Whereas when I go to Europe, I'm like, oh, this is where I belong. So I'm really excited for that.
Okay, I had the home feeling in Mexico. Now I live here, and if you have the home feeling in Europe, we'll see how that unfolds. But the intuition in me is like, okay, so we'll see how that unfolds. So if anyone wants to follow your adventure and follow you, because honestly, Kiki posts a lot of great content on intuitive eating. Love all of her just like really valuable information. So if anyone wanted to get in contact with you, how can they?
Oh, amazing. So on Instagram, I'm Kiki_Athanas. And I also have a website, Kiki Athanas. And yeah, on all the socials, I'm trying to figure out TikTok right now. I'm also there. Same handle or whatever you call it for TikTok.
Okay, beautiful. I'll make sure to link all your links, such a repetitive subject. Anyway, in the description. So, with that being said, thanks so much for coming on and sharing. This was a really fun conversation and close to my heart because I love Mexico. I really do. This is like my place for home, and it's fun to talk to someone who's also been here, who knows like the culture, and also can give some very similar perspectives on some things that I do. I'm not alone.
Definitely not. And if I do come back, I will come visit you.
Beautiful. I can't wait to see you.
Bye, lovely.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Roaming the Now. And until next time, make sure to like and subscribe if you found some value in this episode, and check out the links in the description. You can find the link to get the Roaming the Now episodes delivered directly to your inbox in the description below. So until our next episode, have fun, live in the present moment, and enjoy roaming the now wherever you are in the world.